Thank you so much for coming. I am so happy to be able to introduce these two very classy broads because I have worked with both of them. Marcia Nasatir produced a movie I did called The Big Chill, and Anne Goursaud. Here is Marcia. Let's bring Marcia on.
Thank you. Thank you. Got it? Yeah.
And Anne Goursaud, who is a brilliant editor, edited a movie I did called American Dreamer. So this is a real treat for me because they're both really classy broads. Just a quick reminder, as president of the SAG-AFTRA Foundation, and by the way, Marcia Nasatir is on the board of the SAG-AFTRA Foundation. We're very lucky to have her. That all of this free programming that we do is not paid for by any membership dues, not paid for by the union. It's all donations. So if you feel moved to leave a contribution, that would be fantastic. Or go online and do it. We'd really appreciate it. Thank you. So the first question I have is for, I think for Anne, because she was starting to tell me this story earlier. How did you meet Marcia, and how did you get the idea to do this film?
So, I had left my husband and found an apartment the same day on a street called Palm Drive in Beverly Hills. And I had left everything behind. I was it was an empty nest. And a few weeks later, there was a yard sale across the street. So I said, good, that's what I need. So I crossed the street and it was Marcia Nasatir. She was having a yard sale. Because, you know, you need luck. You need luck. So anyway, we immediately, she invited me to dinner. She, you know her personality. She took me in immediately. And it was before the day of Google, and I was such an ignoramus and really embarrassingly not curious. I really didn't know anything about Marcia, did not research it either. I was too anxious and obsessed with myself. And
left your husband, I mean, yeah, other things to think about.
And looking for a job. So anyway, I just knew she had lived at the beach because she was always talk about it, and she had shared a house with Anthea Silbert. That I knew. So a couple of weeks later, a month later, she calls me and she says, I just gave your name to Fred Roos. And of course, same thing, no idea who that man is. And so she explained, well, he's Coppola's producer, I just gave your name. So Marcia, maybe you can tell the story of that phone call.
Well, Fred called me. They were looking for a woman editor, which is a big change. And I said, I know someone perfect for you. He says, who? I said, her name is Anne Goursaud. She has just come from New York, where she did fabulous work. He says, well, how do I know if she's any good? I said, she's fabulous. I said, why are you asking me that question? And he said, well, I said, she's fabulous. I had not seen one frame. And so they made a date.
Well, eventually, I mean, it's a long story. That's not part of this soiree. But eventually, I got to cut one from the heart. That was my first Coppola picture. So without Marcia, I mean, I didn't know really anybody. I didn't have connection. I went to Columbia Film School, but, you know, when I came to California, I knew some people who were not in the mainstream that could get me an assistant job. So it was a long journey, and Marcia just made it so much easier. I mean, you know, so, and as you know, Marcia has done that for 1,000 people, okay? So then the idea of the movie is kind of a two-prong, because one day we went to the Academy for a screening, And this woman called Susan Landau saw Marcia, and she started to scream, Marcia, Marcia. And I thought, like, whoa. So she was calling, guys, you got to meet Marcia. And eventually I learned what she had done for Susan. When she was one of the movies on location, Marcia came to visit as the big boss from UA. And this Susan was a young PA. And, of course, knowing Marcia, she immediately started to talk to her and find out who she was and liked her. I said, come to lunch with us with the director. And, of course, as you know from the movie business, no PA has lunch with the director on a big picture. So she had never forgotten that.
No.
Right? So I thought, okay, so she started my life. This woman is freaking out just seeing her. What else has she done for other people? So that was the first thing. And then out of frustration of not being able to get my movie that I'm attached to as a director, I thought I'm going to freak out if I don't make something. Because I was an editor for years and I've directed, so I'm used to doing, not just writing or thinking about it at home. So anyway, so I thought documentary. I love documentaries. I had edited one, I had produced and written another one, so I thought that would be great. So what? Marcia. Yeah, Marcia, that's the story I was thinking about. So I called Marcia at 6 o'clock at night, and I say, Marcia, what do you think of the idea of doing a film about you? So she said, well, let me think about that. Okay, I'll call you tomorrow. So next morning, 9 a.m., she's a professional, right? 9 a.m., the store opens. She's on the phone. She says, I said, Marcia, okay, let's do it. Boom.
Thank you.
So, Marcia, having been on the other side of the camera for so many years, how does it feel to see your gorgeous shining face up there, and how do you like being an actress, by the way?
I have to tell you, the one reason I don't think I'm going to get to be an actress is I can't remember lines. So
That's never stopped many an actor I've worked with.
But it's all about what just drifted into my mind and my mouth when I'm anywhere. I like to talk. I grew up in the South where we talk a lot. You're always being pleasant to everyone and you like to tell stories. So that is wonderful, but I can't imagine what it is to have to memorize.
Marcia, you love being an actress.
I don't think you have to worry about a script.
Okay. Well,
I think your improvisation is
okay, I
superb.
can hardly wait. Is there any casting people here? Isn't that
Well,
what you're
she did
supposed
tell
to
me
say?
earlier she wants to compete with Betty White, and I said, I think she could. I really think she could.
And you see, she was a natural. She was completely at ease.
Was she?
Completely.
Yeah?
Not a moment where she was like... She also was very easy. She never questioned, what we
She
were
didn't
doing.
give you producer's advice or anything?
No, she was glowing in the attention she was getting. I hired a really wonderful crew, all good-looking people, all talented, wonderful attitude. They loved her, and she loved being the queen. It was fantastic.
Can I just say, this film was made with 7 people, including me.
Yeah.
3 incredible young men who were our camera, lighting, etc. We had one person who went out for lunch, right?
Or she did more than that, but that's
did.
one of the things she did.
And Annie did everything else.
No, and we had a wonderful makeup person.
Oh, we had a makeup person.
She was
I loved
fantastic.
A good makeup person makes all the difference, don't you think?
She was great. She was smart. She was a terrific person, Carson Labella. And we have our PR person here. I want to point Jennifer Petrini, who has been absolutely... We didn't have her during the shoot, but she has been our new addition, and she's just fantastic.
How did you get funding for this movie? I mean, I would think without a script, it must, I mean, it's hard to get funding for movies with scripts. It must be really hard if you're sitting down.
Well, I said, when Marcia said, well, what about the money? I said, don't worry, it'll be fast. It will be easy.
You were living in a dream world.
Well,
Anne.
I thought, you know, well, she knows so many people who are very, very successful. We'll just beg and, you know, ask them for money. And some of that worked, but a lot of it did not. A lot of people we thought were going to help us did not. But a producer, very big producer, I don't want to really give his name, but he gave us a large sum of money, which was a big surprise. But otherwise, you know, it was a struggle, a constant begging and begging. And the family pitched in. And every friend, you know, I mean, 2,000 here, 2,000 there. And we were very frugal. I didn't pay myself. Only the crew was paid. They were paid, absolutely.
And of course, Marcia got her exorbitant
Yes,
fee.
exactly. She
As
got
producer and actress,
yes,
I'm sure.
exactly. So it was just, you know, and sometimes we had to stop because we had to, again, raise a few thousand. And like that. Very, not the Coppola way.
Marcia, I have a question for you about Texas, because I'm a Texas girl too. How is it so many Jewish people wound up going to San Antonio, Texas, of all places in the world? I mean, why was that attractive as a place to sort of migrate?
I can tell my family story.
Yeah, tell your story.
My father came first to South America from the Ukraine, from Russia. Then he came to New York and he spoke Spanish now, Yiddish and Russian. And he met my mother and they got married. And his business was he sold woolen material to make men's suits. He was a peddler. And now that he's in the United States, he said the first place he went was Jersey City, where it turned out a lot of Spanish-speaking people were. But that was not big enough. And he started traveling in America, and he ended up in San Antonio. And why Jews came to San Antonio, they came in through Houston, which was a port where European ships came. And I guess they maybe were in Houston, and then for whatever reason ended. We had a community of like 2,500 families when I was growing up, and there were 3 Jewish houses of worship. If you can, Orthodox place, a semi-Orthodox, and then a temple, and they were all Germans and didn't wear yarmulkes.
The very idea. It's just so funny to me because Central Texas to me would be, if I were coming to the United States, I mean, and I'm from Houston, so I can say this, why anyone would want to go and settle in Central Texas, I don't know.
No, I think you went where you could earn a living. It was about jobs. I mean, the progression of Jews across America, the department stores, right? People, you could be a peddler and sell, you know, small things, and then before you know it, you're Neiman Marcus. I believe that, really. That it was, you had no education, remember, because the European Jews went to Hebrew school, but they didn't necessarily go to college. And you had no language, so what do you do to earn a living? You weren't going to be a doctor, you weren't going to be a lawyer, you were going to be a merchant. That's how they ended up in Texas. Well, you're from Houston.
I'm from Houston, yeah.
But also the army, right? For your father, the fabric that he sold.
Oh, yes. My father became really successful during the war because he sold uniforms for officers.
Right. And as a Texas girl, growing up in Texas, did you say to yourself, I really want to be in show business? Was that ever like a dream of yours?
It was a dream that I wouldn't even have dreamed it.
What did you think when you were a kid in Texas? What did you think you wanted to be?
I wanted to be a newspaper woman. And that really truly came from the movies. I know in the film I said a black dress with white collars and cuffs. That's true. That's really true. But my dream was that I was going to be a newspaper woman and travel around the world, because there was Margaret Burke White, the photographer, and then there were women journalists, and then you saw movies. I am a true product of movies. What I saw on the screen, I wanted to be.
Roz Russell in His Girl Friday.
Yes, that was perfect. For Cary Grant, you get.
Yeah.
When you have,
Exactly.
I just saw one quick foreign correspondent. Remember, and it was a journalist, and you got to go to Europe, and you got to be a wonderful person. That's really what it was about. You told the truth, and you fought the bad guys. And girls were not detectives. I don't think we had detective movies.
No, I don't remember female detectives.
Anyway, that's how.
Not till Cagney and Lacey.
Huh?
Cagney and Lacey.
Cagney and Lacey.
Annie, how long did it take you to shoot this movie? And were you putting it together sort of as you went along? Were you editing as you went along?
Totally, yeah. We started, we did first the anniversary in Toronto of your movie.
Right?
And then we stopped, and then we did Lorenzo, because Marcia he's going to go, you got to shoot him. And he did die, right? So we caught him on time, wonderful man. Marcia cries every time she sees him. They were best friends, and they were wonderful together. So we did that, and all along I would try to, edit what I had. Mm-hmm. And then of course it was getting, the right interviews at the right time. So like Glenn could only do it at a certain time. Robert Town, I had to beg him for 6 months, but he came, he was wonderful. We were totally prepared, because since he's a bit of, Robert Town, so I didn't want him to. So we were totally set up, everything went like charm, and it took only 15 minutes to ask him the question, because I knew exactly what I wanted from him. I just wanted him to talk about Marcia, Robert, Chinatown, and the fact that he was upset when she left the agency. And he delivered on all this beautifully. He said, I loved her, which was fantastic. Say, okay, well, it's a wrap, we're done. And he went like, already? I mean, he just wanted to go on and on. Now he was so comfortable. After I thought like, oh God, after 6 months of dragging him into a chair.
He was wonderful.
He loved her. I mean, he did it, The thing that was amazing was John Dean. John Dean, jumped up and down for her immediately.
That's so great. I love that interview with him especially.
I didn't have to beg him. He was, for Marcia, anything.
And because can I just say one thing about really what it's about, because I don't know here if anyone, we're all about talking to people, and you meet them once, and you might have anyway, one day I got a call, it's here with a guy who really was a surfing buddy of Moe's, and he did into our office. It was the Watergate hearings were on the television set, and here comes John Dean, and he has just talked to we'd already seen him, and we believed him. And he came in the office, and he said he thought he wanted to write a book. Would we represent him? But the real reason you believed him, because I believed him, because his middle name is Wesley. And John Wesley is a Protestant minister, famous founder of the Protestant.
Well, she believed him because he was good looking.
Well, that was my thinking. He would never tell a lie. It's true. It's a long time ago now, Watergate. But luckily, we might get a chance to have one again. Did
you feel when you were really sort of breaking down barriers, and you did. Did you feel that when you were doing it? I mean, did you look around and go, you know, there are no other women doing what I'm doing? You know, I feel like I'm really sort of striking a mark for women here, or did that not enter into it?
I had worked in publishing in New York, and the women had good jobs in publishing because publishing jobs didn't pay as much as other careers, and the men weren't in it, so it was good enough for women. I don't mean to whatever. Anyway, but once I had the job here, I looked for other women to go to lunch with, and I was shocked at how few there were. And so we began, Andrea Eastman, these names maybe. What was the lady at, the tough lady at William Morris? Thank you. She wouldn't come. And there were other women, and I thought, this is going to be great. That we're feminists, we're going to get together and talk politics. And the first meeting, someone said, wouldn't it be wonderful if we all brought in our favorite recipe? and we're going to maybe put a book together. And I thought, huh? So I cut out of the New York Times. I'm really a good cook, even though Lorenzo says I'm not as good as I think I cut out the recipe and put at the top Marcia's chocolate brownies or something. They were so offended. Oh, Lordy. But it was like, I don't know. I mean, there are men here, but I'm saying. But I sometimes feel, you know, we had a revolution and then nobody showed up. Or maybe we showed up and we forgot what we were there for. Anyway.
Yeah, it is frustrating. I mean, I remember in the 70s and 80s when I was, you know, sort of starting in this business thinking, yeah, roles for women, this is going to change, you know, we're feminists, it's all going to change. And it hasn't really changed that much, you know, and it's slowly it changes, step by step, and one step back.
It's about culture.
Yeah.
It's about people's belief and attitude. It's old stuff.
Annie, what's different for you in making a documentary from making a narrative, a scripted narrative film?
Well, documentary for an editor is you need a whole set of skills to edit a documentary. Well, a feature film, you're working with a script, and you're working already with images that have been gathered, you know, and shot. You have spoken to the director. You have heard what he has imagined in his movie. So you're like working with, you know, all these ideas and concepts in your head when you start editing. So it becomes more a matter of selection of performance, selection of, you know, the construction of the scene, visual and so forth. So that's the thing. With a documentary, you need to really have a sense of storytelling, because very often you have to invent or construct the story that's not totally there, you know. So it's a different set of skills. That's why the Maisons brothers would give a co-directing credit to their editor several times, because really the editor in a documentary really has to really come up very often with a story, the best way to put all these pieces together to come up with a story. Like the documentary I did before, when this guy came to me, he had one idea about his movie. It was called Ultra Suede in Search of Halston. You can actually, it's in the world on YouTube, whatever. It was on Showtime.
Ultra Suede in Search of
Halston, the couturier.
Halston.
Yeah. And so he had an idea when he came to me that he was going to, you know, do a movie about himself and kind of compare himself to Halston with women and beautiful women and all that. Because Halston was always surrounded by the most beautiful, they were called the Halstonette, the beautiful model. And when I was a very young girl in New York, And I had gone to do research on a master's in art history and didn't do it. For a second, I worked in the fashion world because of my accent, I guess. I was hired, I didn't know. But I lucked out again with somebody who was at the top, and I met Halston, and I said to the guy, if you're going to do a movie, you compare yourself to Halston, you're going to get killed. He's a major. So I helped him, totally change what the movie was going to be about and to shoot it for that. So a documentary editor is more like a director, although a lot of editors in features too. But you're working with more elements that have already been created before you come in. On the documentary, you get to mold the sculpture more. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's great. Absolutely. Marcia, I wanted to ask, when you read a script and over your career, when you've read a script, what is the single most important thing to you about that script? Besides Vietnam, I know you, but...
Well, of course, you know about The Big Chill, right?
Oh, I know how hard it was to get it made,
No,
yeah.
there is not one thing. There is only one thing. If you start the script and you want to find out what is going to happen, first few pages, or the writing is reasonably readable, legible. That's all I care about. I want to read something that I am surprised or interested in or moved by and has a resolution, even though a lot of the movies, well, for example, The Big Chill doesn't have a real resolution. People's lives go on, and we met them and like them and know them, and then they're going to go back to whatever lives they had. But we will think that they're going back to the lives that we've learned about in the screen, in the movie, isn't that? Can I ask you a question?
You betcha.
When you read a script and they say they want you to, what do you look for?
How good is the part? No, I mean it's the same. It's does the story catch me? Does the character have an arc? Does my character, it doesn't matter if it's a lead or if it's a secondary part, does it have an arc? Does it have a beginning, a middle, and end? And do you care about the people in this movie? Is there something in this movie that draws you? I mean, I've seen some wonderful movies where you don't really wind up caring about anybody, but they don't move me, and I'm never as involved in those kinds of movies, the more sort of heady intellectual movies, as I am where something emotional in the movie calls to me. And what's your favorite movie that you've ever worked on as an editor or... Dracula. Oh, yeah. Yeah. What was that experience like?
As an editor, absolutely fabulous. Does that answer you, fabulous? Is this general enough? No, but that kind of movie is very creative editorially because it's not just performance,
right.
So there was a lot of sequences. I mean, I came in after their first preview, which didn't go well. So I ended up reworking the entire picture. And it's just, there were so many sequences, a lot of great montages that had to be figured out, and a lot of sequences that a special, concept, visually, acting-wise, so you had to pull it off. So it was very challenging. It was all these different things you had to create and, so for the souffle to rise, right. Right. So I just really, really enjoyed working on that film. Plus, I mean, it was, once we got to the, mixing with the sound and the music, and it was like, wow. It was just a treat,
Yeah, because it was a big movie. It had great scale.
Yeah.
It had great actors and story and characters, but it also had a larger sort of...
The great killer score,
Yeah.
which, by the way, Frances totally reworked with his music editor.
That's interesting.
A fabulous woman. I wish I could remember her name right now. Anyway, yeah, so it was very, very creative. I love that one.
Marcia, what's your favorite movie that you've produced, let's say? And you don't have to say The Big Chill.
No, I was not going. I was going to say Hamburger Hill, because that was truly a personal film. It's the cliche we hear all the time. I want to make a personal story. But my son had gone to Vietnam. I was one of the many people in America who still don't know what we were doing there. I was Jim Karabatsos, who wrote the story and who you see in the film, came into my office to sell me something else, some thriller. And I said, tell me what movie you would really like to make or write. And he said, I want to tell about what it's like to be 19 years old and go to war. He said, you know, I wanted to go. It was a great adventure for a young man to dream that you're going to go to war and be a hero. And we went to work and we got that film made. And that's what I guess I wanted for my son, to try and understand why he didn't refuse to be drafted. And Jim went happily and willingly to Vietnam. And when we were making the movie, they were all young men who had not been born, or maybe, and they too thought of it as the war story as a great adventure. It's very depressing. But it was a wonderful experience because we were in the Philippines and we were on location, and you got to see how attractive I looked in those. And yet it was a really incredibly wonderful thing. The only thing that was wrong, well, shortly before we were in the Philippines, Oliver Stone was there making Platoon. And we walk out of finish our film, and I come home to America, and Platoon is opening. And we were second. And, well, I guess you've heard that all said. That's hard. It's a hard moment, because you think you're telling... The picture has a life, though. From soldiers, Jim gets letters all the time that say thank you, because that's the way it was. So you have to be pleased with that. And I didn't make any money.
I know you guys are really tired. You've been to a number of film festivals. Just the most recent one was in San Francisco. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Marcia should tell, because she's the one who had just loved it.
I loved it. It's a international Jewish film festival, and we learned that it's the #1 international Jewish film festival. We now know there are more than one. In St. Louis, there's one. Yeah, there's one in Boca Raton, Florida. We played Moscow.
We're going to Boca Raton. They want us.
We played.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah.
We're going to San Diego. They want us.
Yes, but it is sort of. But that's now Anne. Anne decided that the most interesting thing about me was I was Jewish.
From Texas.
From Texas. And I had never quite, because we were asked that. And I now have an answer. Maybe you don't want to know the answer. In San Antonio, in a secular Jewish household, we had Passover, but I considered Passover our Easter. Mama made hard-boiled eggs, colored them, and we used to put them in the backyard.
That's great.
Christmas was Hanukkah. The only thing is we got 8 days of presents instead of 1. And I think the rationalization was what every kid wants to be is like every other kid, right? And here was this Texas environment, and you could be Jewish and have Easter and Christmas, but differently. I mean, that's why we all love being here, right?
Now, my son, when he was 5 and was in preschool, all his friends were Jewish, and he came home and told me that he was Jewish, and that he wanted to celebrate Hanukkah. And I said, well, we're not actually a Jewish family. And he said, well, I am. And I said, okay, but this doesn't mean you're going to get, presents for, 11 nights or eight nights. Don't count on that. So we gave a Christmas party, which we used to do, and we were all singing Christmas carols, and Will would only sing, O Hanukkah, come light the menorah. He's 5 years old, and he's singing by himself. All my Jewish friends, of course, adored it. They thought it was great. So,
Great story.
yeah. Marcia, what advice would you give to women in our business now? Is there anything you feel you've learned that would be helpful, or anything any advice you could give any of us about
Life.
anything?
Never get discouraged if you can help it. It sounds so banal.
Not coming from you, believe me.
Improvise. I had to go to work because I had 2 young sons who you saw there.
No, because you liked it.
No, when I went to work, I had to earn a living because I was divorced.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's different. And I loved working. I liked to learn something new. I was never afraid of taking, or never embarrassed to take any kind of job. I always saw there was something to learn, and I could learn from it. What else are advice? Know sort of what you want to do, but be willing to make changes and do something different, right? And that, I don't know, it's just try to feel about yourself that you are special and you have something to offer. And when you take a job, when young women come and ask me, I say, well, what do you know how to do that you can sell? And to the employee. And some woman I met, she spoke 4 languages. And I said, well, that's wonderful. That's something you can give to someone. She said, you mean you think it's important that I speak German, Spanish, French, and English? I said, yeah. But it's like, figure out what you know best, one thing maybe, and say, that's what I can do, and I have that to offer an employer. Is that what you're asking me?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, to me, done next.
Done next.
Says it, we have to stay curious, we have to stay active. When you feel like, one door is closed to you, what's the next open door? And I have so much respect for you for that and all you've done.
And I think all the people here, you all have chosen the toughest job in the whole world. I've never forgotten the first time I sat in an audition and watched actors come into the room, do their little thing, and you say, thank you very much, and then the casting person would say, next. But I thought, I couldn't do that, ever. And can I congratulate everybody here? Very great.
Annie, what's next after you finish the many festivals that you guys are doing with this movie?
So many things, this time saying, I have a workshop tomorrow, I have a meeting, but whatever. I'm preparing for it. Microphone. Oh yes, I'm still. I guess you talk about the future. No, I'm somebody who keeps working no matter what. I found something. I've written short stories, which I got on the blog called Actually, you should all look at it because it's Nikki Fink, who used to have Deadline.
Deadline, yeah.
And now she has a site called Hollywood Dementia. And I found about it by reading Hollywood Reporter one day because my newspaper in the morning had not arrived, which I cannot start the day without reading. So I thought, oh, I'll read the Hollywood Reporter. And there was an article on Nikki and this new thing that she has. And she was looking for only show business stories. So I had been writing show business stories about my experiences. So I just disguised, and she has published 4 of my, I don't know if it's published, but on her blog you can find 4. So, I did that. I'm working on a series right now, but not the kind of series you would imagine, but I can't tell. And I'm working on several features that I've been working on for a while. So that's what I'm doing.
Great. Well, I just want to say to both of you what wonderful role models you are for the young women in our business.
Thank you.
And I feel really lucky to have worked with both of you in the days when I was making movies, and
JoBeth knows
exciting.
that the Big Chill, they were turned down 17 times, right?
Yep.
So you just keep saying, you have to believe in yourself. It sounds like, was it Dale Carnegie?
Yeah, yeah. What's next for you?
Well,
Marcia?
I'm still trying to make Huckleberry Finn. And I have now a story, World War II story, and trying to figure out if there is still room for one more, which tries to tell you about a woman who was a concentration camp guard, and she comes to America and has a new life and meets a man who recognizes her for having sent his wife and children to their death. So I don't know, doesn't have any, I'm trying to figure out who those people were. All right.
Yeah. So worth continuing. We'll be exploring that for a long, long time, I think. Well, thank you so much, and thank you all for coming.